episode 1 of the PFedu podcast, where we're bringing you educational content on a variety of topics. And our first guest has been with me the longest. He started as an intern. He's seen stuff grow from a small warehouse space in Blue Ash, Ohio, to our mega facility that we have now, to running essentially his own location down in northern Kentucky that we call the redheaded stepchild. So with all due pleasure, I'd like to welcome Clay Mefford to our podcast. So,
What's up, guys? Yo, yo, yo. Yo, yo, yo.
His yo entrance. So for those of you who don't know, Clay runs our northern Kentucky location down there in Covington. We call him our assistant performance director because if God forbid anything happened to me, he's running the whole show. And he's been with me the longest. So I think it would be most appropriate if we shared the first time I met you. I think we shared that story.
That story?
I think we have to. So for those of you that don't know, I already kind of alluded to it. Clay started out as an intern with us. So back when we had our facility in Blue Ash. And he showed up to – well, I'll let him tell a story, but he showed up to an interview.
Oh, you want me to take it from there?
Yeah.
So yeah, it was the year I graduated from Northern, so the summer of 2016. I was talking with a guy that I had interned at Northern my last semester there, just about how the job search was coming, if I had any luck at all of finding an opportunity somewhere. And at the time, I was still working on a golf course. I just like being around golf, so I figured I'd take that summer to get at some free golf and make some money at the same time. But that conversation led to, his name's Dalton. He was telling me about this place that he found in Blue Ash called ProForce Sports Performance, run by Kevin. And I was like, yeah, like, what's that like? Asked him a few questions. He told me that Kevin would be happy if I rode up to meet him, get to see the building where he was. I think you were actually like just moving into that building.
Yeah, I don't even think we had opened yet. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like, I mean, there were some athletes there working out that day, but regardless, I rode up to Blue Ash one day after getting off at the golf course, and all I had was a shirt to change into instead of wearing my sweaty golf uniform up there. And it was I wore the shirt originally because I wanted him to know that I had an idea of some stuff in the strength conditioning realm. And it ended up being his main competitor in that Blue Ash, Mason, Ohio area. And I think it was like the first thing he said to me was, "Man, you're really going to show up to an interview in my competitor's shirt?" I did not even think about it like that. But yeah, walk into an interview wearing the company that I'm interviewing for, their main competitor's logo and name. So that was a great start. And actually, I got to meet Megan, Kevin's wife, that day, just randomly. I think you guys were going somewhere that night for dinner, and that was the first thing she said too. She said, "Why is he wearing your competitor's shirt?" So started off on a great note there. But I must have said like some good things in our conversation that day because Kevin offered me an internship and I jumped on it. And I've never looked back. That while I was an intern, this first couple months, I was still working at the golf course. So working from there from like 7 to 2 or so, and then hightailing it up 75 to Blue Ash, trying to just get my feet wet and learn some things. And I definitely did. I learned a tremendous amount in that about a year or so that we were at that facility in Blue Ash. And then that internship quickly turned into a part-time position. Part-time position turned into running your own location in northern Kentucky. So it's been –
It came about quick.
Yeah, it all happened very fast, but it's been a great learning experience.
So I think what I'd like to go with next here is kind of what is your passion for coaching? Like why do you coach? Like a lot of us have opportunities to do a million other things in life. Um, so
Yeah.
kind of why do you coach? Like there's so many other things that you could be doing. What makes you want to coach?
What makes me want to coach? Well, what made me kind of get into this field in the first place, like even before I took an internship at Northern, um, when I first started like taking some exercise science classes, my main driver was I don't want to sit. Like at end of high school, early college, I thought I might go business, accounting, some sort, because I took a couple accounting classes in high school and I did enjoy them. But once I got out of high school, I had started like working out a little bit, and I just told myself like I don't want to sit. I don't see myself going to an office and sitting for 8 or 9 hours. And I got into it was actually probably when I was at Gateway taking like some gen ed classes. They had just started a personal training curriculum, so I took some of those courses. Really enjoyed it, and then once I got to Northern, it was actually Nathan. Nathan was at the time already at Northern. He was already in exercise science, so I asked him some questions about some different stuff. He didn't really at the time knew exactly what he wanted to do either, but basically I found out like, oh, I could work with athletes and make money doing it. So I thought maybe I would go into like a university or something and work with athletes. Regardless, I realized I didn't want to sit. I wanted to interact with people. I feel like I'm a people person. I love working with people. And then once I interned at Northern and then I started with you, I realized kind of the impact you can make on someone's life through strength conditioning or exercise, fitness, whatever you want to call it in general. And then when I thought about it in terms of like my athletic career growing up, I wish I could have had someone like you or like me to go to help not only make me a better athlete, but make me a better person. I believe that you can learn and take away a lot of stuff that you do in the weight room that can refer back to everyday life. And I know for me and what like strength conditioning has done for like my confidence and like self-esteem in general, being able to give that to a young, maybe like kind of confused middle schooler or high schooler and help them like find out what they're capable of. Like, I don't want to really use like potential, but like helping them realize like what their potential could be. A lot of people don't realize some stuff or people don't realize really what they're capable of. And being able to help someone, whether it's an adult or an athlete, realize that they're capable of much more from where they're currently at is super, super awesome or a super great feeling for me. So why do I coach? I want to help people realize what they're capable of. Like, I'm having a hard time putting it really into words, but
I think you just did. I think you gave a fine answer there. I mean,
yeah, I feel like I'm kind of rambling trying to find my words for it, but I was actually thinking about this the other day too. Like I was kind of reflecting on some things and I was like, why, like, what is my why? I think I was listening to a podcast about it. I think that's what made me think about it. I had a much better answer, I feel like, the other day than what I just rambled on about. But no, I just really enjoy helping someone get to a better place than where they're currently at. And when I look at myself, because we work with a lot of high schoolers at ProForce, I would say that's probably the main clientele is high school. So when I look at myself when I was a freshman in high school, I was a good athlete, but I was a late bloomer. So like going into freshman year or even eighth grade year, I like started to carry some extra weight. I was never fat, but I was never skinny. And I was a very good athlete up until about 7th or 8th grade. And then like my growth just like hit a wall. This didn't develop really until like end of freshman year, sophomore year. So in that like 3 or 4 year period, I carried some extra weight. I had some bad coaches that didn't really give me good advice. They just didn't communicate it well. And when I look back at that period of my life, I want these high schoolers that we're working with, or these middle schoolers that might be feeling like some of the same feelings that I was feeling. I want them to realize that that is not the end for you. Like if you can put in just a little bit of work over a long period of time, you will be in a much better spot than where you were. I just had some coaches in like my eighth grade year, 7th grade year. They're like, I think they did. They used the word fat. Like, you got to get in better shape. And they didn't say it in a good way. It almost, instead of lifting me up, it put me down. And that really did. It held back my athletics through that 7th, 8th grade period all the way through high school. I really didn't have a good year of high school soccer until my junior year when I started like training a little bit. And even then it wasn't anything like we do at ProForce. It was, I had a coach tell me I was overweight, so I just tried to go lose some weight so I could make it up down the field better. But there's a lot of bad coaches out there that don't really do what a coach should do. And I want these kids that come see us to realize that you're going to be okay. Even if a coach is making you feel like crap or you get cut or whatever it may be, you can come back and you will come back if you have the right attitude.
No, and that's a great answer to why you coach, and appreciate the detail in there, because I think it speaks volumes of kind of what we've really tried to create is kind of like that hashtag PF family where we care, right? And the old saying, right? I always botch it, but like no one knows how much you care until you can kind of show them how much you care.
Exactly.
I think what you said is hands down. Like I think that's why most of us coach is we've had a bad experience along the way, but we had 1 or 2 people that uplifted us and continued our process, and we just want to continue to give back because we understand how that feels. So
I couldn't agree more.
There. I think what I want to do now is kind of shift gears a little bit, is get into a little bit of the technicality of what we do. I think a lot of what we do, we see incredible performance increases in our athletes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes much quicker than you and I would even say is actually legitimate. Like we always hear like 6 to 8 week training window, right? We have to have 6 to 8 weeks, but I think you'll vouch for this too. Like I've seen it multiple times where like week 2, they're just moving better. Like they just, stuff starts to click. What in your opinion, when looking at kind of our methodology, right? What in your opinion kind of separates that from the rest of the pack, or why do you feel we get the results that we get? I guess is kind of the question.
Yeah. Well, for one, I think we do a great job at just coaching, like the movement. I mean, just fundamental movements is kind of what we build our program around. So we do a damn good job at coaching that up. And then I remember you saying this a long time ago, like our warm up is almost like a rite of passage sometimes. I mean, it is. It's in depth. It's not the easiest. I mean, we've had some hard warm-ups in like the 3 years that I've been with you. But I mean, our warm-up, I've kind of like tweaked our warm-up down here a little bit. It's still the same for the most part. I just switch out some different things here and there, but you essentially do the same movement in our warm-up every day you're in here. So you're always practicing how to lunge, how to be stable on one leg to some capacity, working on a good deep squat, I just feel like we cover certain things in our warm up and in our program that the kids just keep pounding and pounding and pounding and pounding. And just like anything else, like if you're consistent with training and with your whatever movements are in your program, you're going to get better at them. We don't do anything flashy, but we do a lot of the basics, and we just do them over and over and over again. And when I hear about like some of the other places in the area and like what they do for warm-ups, there isn't any. I mean, they'll do like some type of activation stuff where they're doing some sort of like fast feet, and like some sprints, of course, but you're never practicing like good sound movement. And you told me this back probably when I was an intern, if we can help our athletes move better, they're going to perform better. Like you got to get in the right position to dictate what you want your body to do. Right. So I would say that and I'd say this all the time down here, like we're just savage at the basics. Like we're savagely good at the simple fundamental stuff. And when I look at
the basic, I like
savage at the basics. Yeah. When I look at my training, how my training kind of evolved when we opened this Northern Kentucky location, I went to more of all the way up until when I started with you, I was exercising and training more like a bodybuilder, probably like bodybuilding splits and chasing pumps all the time, whatever you want to call it. But like once I started focusing more on just like movement, my performance went through the roof. Like I remember when we got the jump mat down here, I was jumping like 27 or 28 inches. And I took that 28 to a 35 in like that first year down here. And it's just because you're moving your body through space and you're figuring out where your body is. Yeah, figuring out where your body is in space. And when you're in different positions, you just don't get that when you climb into machines per se or whatever. And I just think that I would say like our warm up, and then we just do a good job at coaching the kids up from the start. Like there's a couple of middle schoolers that started with me that first year down here. And now when they're training, well, not now, obviously, but like when they were to come in before quarantine happened, I would almost have to spend more time with a sophomore in high schooler that started with us like 2 months ago versus my 7th grader that started with me 2 years ago. Because I know he's going to squat properly. I know he's going to lunge properly. I know he knows how to do a simple RDL. But the sophomore that just started with us can't hinge, or he can't do a split squat. So as long as we coach him up from the start and help them feel the right positions, then going forward, the program is going to be a lot easier for them per se, in my opinion, at least.
Oh yeah, and I like that. I really like that being savage at the basics quote, because I think far too often, and you've seen this, and even what we've done, right? It's like you find the new latest trend or the new latest research article. I feel like far too often we're too quick to implement. We're like, oh man, this looks awesome. We need to start doing this with our athletes. And I think now we do a better job of, okay, well, we're going to test this on ourselves. Then we have like this subgroup where it's like, now we can try this with this group of athletes.
Yeah.
Now this will go live into the full like methodology. But I think I feel like personally myself, the last really 2 to 3 years, it's been, how can I make this more basic? How can I keep this simpler to where it is the same constructs of like exercise library that we're choosing from. Mm-hmm. But at the same point, like if there's research that validates it and we see performance improvements in the athletes, then we need to move forward with change and changing things. But I think we don't need to be, and I think we've done a better job of this too, is the early adapter. Now we found stuff out, I'm sure you have, and you find things out kind of anecdotally with your own athletes where you're like, oh, if we change this way, we see a huge change in something. But at the end of the day, I think it's more about like keeping it simple, stupid, right?
Mm-hmm.
Keeping things
Yeah.
basic.
Mm-hmm.
To your point, like you can easily teach an eighth grader these movements and they're going to be confident. And I think one of the things I always preach is like, we want to set our athletes up for success, right? It's about putting your athlete in an environment that's going to allow them to succeed, not fail,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because to your point earlier about kind of why you coach, having bad coaches, failing chronically, I think that's one of the reasons why our athletes see success so quickly is we don't let them fail, right?
Yeah.
Like you said, basics. Like we give them the basics, they succeed at the basics. Now we can advance, and I think one of the things I don't know how often you've gotten this, but I get it all the time from our athletes that have been with us for what 6 years now. Is it doesn't matter how often they come in, I'm still finding different ways to kind of kick their ass or keep changing the program. And that's the great thing about us is it's like there's tiers here. And as you move on through our program, it's just, hey, you graduated. Okay, you're here. You
Yeah.
graduated. Okay, you're here. And I know one of the big things that everybody's tried to really copy us on and get started, right, is the whole like evaluation process. Like how do we actually individualize an athlete's program? I know a lot of people have been kind of chasing our coattails on that one for a while.
Yeah.
And I think that's another reason why we see such great success is.
Yeah. I didn't even think about this. The assessment is definitely huge. Not only because we figure out some of the finer details about why an athlete might be struggling with something on the field or the court or whatever, but it also goes back to just the people aspect of it. Like we're getting to know that client or that athlete before they come in on their first session. So when they come in, they've already seen your face. They've already seen my face or Josh's face. They've seen the facility. They kind of know what to expect because most likely when they come in for assessment, someone's going to be training. So they have kind of that initial feeling, or if there's any nervousness about it, that's gone after the assessment. So when they come in, they're normally excited. They have some idea of what to expect. Yeah, the assessment's definitely huge on why we see success, for sure.
Yeah, and I know you touched on a great point, like the nervousness level of somebody in evaluation, because you can immediately try to feel out that personality. Like, can I joke with this person?
Yeah.
What does this person want? And I'll kind of swing this into a business side, and you can kind of dive on that as well. As like when you're doing an evaluation on somebody, you can immediately tell like not only the client but the parents that what they want, right? So it's like you have the client or parent that wants you to list every publication as to why you're doing what you're doing. You have the ones who just want you to talk about what others have done and what their successes are and kind of give you the averages. And then you have the client and parent who really doesn't care. Like they're just here to get better and you're already the perceived expert. They don't want to know anymore. So have you kind of noticed that as well? Like when you're doing the evaluation, like feeling out that different personality type and you're like, okay, well, here's what I got to talk about because this is what they want.
Yeah, and sometimes I've honestly done like the exact opposite. Like I feel like, sorry, I don't know if you could hear that or not. Sometimes I feel like I always have to go to that end where they want to know everything. They want every publication, why I'm doing this test or why I'm looking at this hip IR or whatever it may be. And I'll go on and ramble and ramble and ramble. And then like the end point is just so easy. Like, all right, well, when can we get started? So I was like, oh gosh, I just rambled all that for nothing. But no, you definitely can. You definitely can tell the difference. It's definitely easier, I feel like, when they want to know something, right? Like I almost feel awkward when I take a son or a daughter for 30, 45 minutes. And then I'm like, all right, we're done. Like, this is what I found. And I give them just a very brief overview and they're like, okay, when can we get started? Like sometimes it is hard to figure out like right off the bat, but generally as I'm going through the eval, I'm normally asking the athlete or the parents some sort of question about school or anything else they enjoy. If they've trained anywhere else or what made them come to ProForce. But what was the exact question that Kevin that you wanted me to answer?
I think you did. It's easy to get lost in questions, so don't worry about that. But the big thing I wanted to kind of talk to you about today in the podcast is like, what's it like to be a soccer guy that's thrust into having to be a baseball guy?
It's been a learning experience. It's honestly like one thing I played soccer in high school. I didn't play anymore after that. I still play some soccer today, but I don't necessarily I would say if I'm a soccer guy. I've been telling before all this happened, some of the kids have been wanting me to find an old basketball hoop for out back down here. I keep telling them, like, dude, you guys don't want me to do that because I will school all of you. Like, and so I've been talking to like some of these kids that play some basketball. I'm like, dude, I will run you one-on-one. And I just tell them all the time, like, I'm an athlete. Like, growing up, yeah, in high school I only played soccer. But up until then, it was baseball, basketball, soccer. And honestly, if I go back and do high school again, I'd probably do basketball and golf. But if I would just say I'm an athlete. Like, I love athletics. I do enjoy working with baseball because we're inside of a batting cage now, and that's when I started with you, heavy baseball, still is heavy baseball, which is a good thing. We've done really well in that market. The hardest thing for me was just learning more about the shoulder, like learning all the ins and outs and why upward rotation is so important for baseball guys and just arm care and how important, like, I didn't realize how crappy throwing a baseball was for your elbow and your shoulder. Like, I really, like, growing up, you just throw it, it doesn't hurt. Like, you just throw the ball. Once I started working with you, and I mean, honestly didn't learn a ton about it in college, but yeah, just the demand that throwing a baseball and the impact it has on your shoulder and your elbow over a long period of time and all the ins and outs that go into helping keep something like that healthy for such a long duration of the year. Because, I mean, here in Northern Kentucky, Ohio, kids play baseball 9 months out of the year most of the time. So, like, teaching, especially the high schoolers and even the middle schoolers, like, you want to go play baseball 5 days a week, then you have got to get in here and do some sort of strengthening for your shoulder, your arm, your whole body in general. I would say that was the hardest thing, was just realizing the demand it has and how much work it actually takes to keep your arm healthy and strong for such a long period of the year. That was probably the hardest thing. And aside from that, as far as like training the baseball guy, like, I'm sure you would probably say the same thing, like, not a ton different from any of our other athletes. We just have to pay more attention to that upper extremity and the hips, of course, but I mean, hips get used in all sports. So, like, yeah, I would just say the arm care and the shoulder care. That was like the biggest thing for me. And there's a lot of moving parts in a shoulder. So I'm still learning stuff. So that was probably the hardest part for sure.
Yeah. It's one thing that you don't realize how complex one joint can be.
Yeah.
I remember when I first started diving into it, it just utterly baffled me, and it honestly confused me, because it's like you have all these moving parts, and everything does something different. And how does that affect a throwing motion? How does that affect somebody's ability to throw hard? And once you learn just how unnatural and how unhealthy Like throwing overhand is like it seems like such a natural movement, right? So
Yeah.
to learn how unnatural it is really mind blowing. I think
Yeah.
you mentioned something in there, and what what would you say to? Because I think this is a sport that's undervalued immensely, and I think it's more of one of those like life sports that you can do forever, and that is golf. And what would you say you have found kind of just working with yourself? Because I know we personally don't have a ton of golfers up here
No.
at our location, or you just don't see a
Shout
lot
out
of
Brandon
golfers.
Bishop. Shout out Brandon Bishop.
Yeah, Brandon Bishop. You just don't see a lot of golfers in general train or like take it seriously.
Yeah.
Why?
I don't I don't know. It's probably that picture of John Daly that you flashed at me last week when we were on Zoom. Everybody thinks that you don't need to be in shape for golf. I mean, when I was so like I didn't play golf in high school. Like I just didn't have the time for it because soccer. Like even going out and playing with my dad like I used to in grade school, like we didn't have time for that in high school just because soccer and other stuff that you do when you're in high school. But when I got out of high school and I started playing more golf again and I started to like watch more golf too. I mean, this would be 2010, 2011. Trying to think of like some of like the golfers that were just coming out then. But like if I look back at the last couple of years now, I'll throw some names out there, but I doubt anybody knows. Like Brooks Koepka, Tony Finau, Ricky Fowler. Like those three guys just right there could have went professional in another sport probably. Like Ricky Fowler could have went. He was actually like a big motocross guy. I know it's something. But Brooks Koepka was like a bomb like baseball player. I think like he probably could have played collegiate baseball. Tony Finau, same way. I want to say his sport was basketball. Both of those guys are like a little bit taller, but like Tony Finau can dunk. Like a lot of those guys can dunk because they're powerful. They're strong. And it's one thing that I learned in the past couple of years. I didn't realize how much vertical force like goes into a golf swing. Just you have more athletes. I'll get back to that word, athletes that are choosing golf mainly because money, because you can make so much money in it. But I feel like you're right. Around here, we don't have a lot of golfers training. For one, I think it's the part of the country we live in. But like if you go to a place like Florida or maybe like the Carolinas or out west, California, I would bet you have a pretty good chunk of golfers that train. Like the high school age or like the middle school age that are taking it seriously already. I'd be willing to bet that those guys are training. I think around here, I would just say it's like just where we live, the climate and everything. You can't play golf year round. You definitely have some people that like love golf and want to play in college and stuff, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they think that some people probably think that it's not going to help their game a whole lot. I don't know. It is. That's an interesting question.
Because I know I've heard from multiple adult clients that do like our Fit for Life.
Yeah.
And I've heard from them like, oh my God, my golf game is like what happened? And it's really going back to the basics, right? Okay, we're cleaning up your hinge pattern, we're cleaning up your squat pattern, you're getting more hip rotation because everything we're cleaning up.
Yeah.
You're generally stronger. So like you said, like vertical force goes up. You're adding more fast twitch muscle fiber to your body. So therefore you're going to be more explosive.
Yeah.
And I know
I would say for a lot of the adults, I would say for like one big impact for golf, I would say it's like you said, loosening stuff up. Like a lot of like adults that we see, they probably, I would say majority of them sit a lot at work or at home or whatever it is. So posture and like their T-spine is probably like locked up like crazy. So you help someone, I mean, even just loosen up their T-spine a little bit, they feel better. I can't imagine what it would feel like if someone enjoys to golf and you help them loosen that up a little bit, and then they try to go swing. I would say that, yeah, like just the mobility aspect of it, like just loosening certain things up so you can actually rotate.
Yeah.
I would say that's probably a huge thing of it, yeah. But that is, like, man, that's got me really thinking now. I would probably say, like, climate. Just like in a place like Florida or Carolina or California, how you got probably more of the population cares about how they look, so they probably exercise and they probably train more often because they're outside more and stuff like that. I would say that has something to do with it.
It does. Hands down, I completely agree with you, because I think when I talk to other business owners, right, your clientele is basically dictated by what your geography wants, right?
Yeah.
So like Cincinnati's big in what? We're big in baseball.
Soccer.
We're big in soccer, and we have pretty good volleyball, right? We're looking at sports, and those are kind of our big three when we look at the clients that we serve, right? So like if I move to Montana and try to open a baseball training business, like I don't know if that's going to go as well, because I'm not going to have as many clientele. Now, yeah, you could do really, really well with your select individuals, and maybe people will perceive you as an expert, but I think look at where this thing is kind of gone. Look at where this thing has gone from like when Krusty started, right, to where it is today. Like there's all these baseball training places across the country. Like it's not where it used to be. So people can have more access to it. But I think that's a very good point on, it's not as big here.
Yeah, it's not as big.
And if the athletes can't justify getting a scholarship over it, they're less likely to take it serious enough to put in the hours to train for it.
Yeah.
It's just like I beat my head on these walls in here multiple times, because it's like there are so many lacrosse athletes that come through our doors.
Why can't we get them to train?
Why don't they train? And we had one that went off to Utah to play on their team, and I asked him, I said, why aren't other teammates coming in here? Like, I don't understand why we don't have more lacrosse, because it's a growing sport here, but it's not like it is in Maryland, like on the East Coast, right? Yeah. Where talk to those guys that own those businesses, and like, oh man, it's lacrosse, soccer. They're not necessarily mentioning baseball, but they mention different sports. And you go, oh man, we can't get the lacrosse kids in here. I don't understand why. And this athlete summed it up. He goes, the majority of kids playing lacrosse here don't view it as like something to get a scholarship in. So they're not going to work for it. He's like, I view it as, this is what I'm getting my scholarship from. So I need to work for it. This is what I want to do.
Yeah. You probably have the very select few, like right. One from each team or something like that.
Right.
It's got to be like that for golf. One of the kids that had recently started with us before quarantine, he was from Cooper. He's a basketball player, but he was telling me about a kid in his grade or someone that goes to his school that going to, I forget what school it is, but it was some big D1 school for golf. And I was like, dude, you got to get him in here. Like, let's get him in here and start training. Like, I love golf. I'd love to work with a golfer. And he was just like, yeah, I don't think he's going to do that. Like, he's kind of bigger, out of shape, and I just don't see him doing this. I'm like, really? Like, he has no idea like what he could do. Like, like just get a little stronger, get a little bit more powerful, maybe loosen something up, or. But yeah, it's probably like that for golf too. You just have the select few that we really want to work for it because they know it's their way out or it's their way into college, and then some kids that are just playing it to play.
Yeah, because I would personally think I would have more golfers and lacrosse athletes than tennis players, but we have more tennis players than the other two combined.
Dude, I bet those tennis players, though, I for some reason, whenever I think about tennis, I just think I think work ethic. Like a lot of those tennis players, man, they put in a lot of work, and I could see majority of them like putting in the extra time, like at a place like ProForce.
Yeah,
For some
and
reason,
I think it has to do with the shoulder too. They're like, okay, well, subject
yeah,
matter experts here. Let's they know how to take care of shoulders, make my serve a little bit better because they kind of fall into that overhead model.
yep,
But
definitely.
yeah, so what I want to kind of wrap up with here is I don't even think I've ever asked you this question, but
Uh,
is there a time in your athletic career where you ever had to overcome something to continue to play, whether it be an injury or an adverse situation? I know you already said you were kind of out of shape and people didn't think you could play, but is there anything else in there where you can kind of share with our athletes a hardship you went through and kind of how you overcame that?
Um. Hmm.
And if not, we can take this a different direction. That's
Well,
kind
I
of the,
mean, yeah, kind of. So like my seventh, I could really probably tell like two stories, two quick ones. So my seventh grade year was probably like that first year of basketball where I came in just a little bit behind the eight ball. Like I started to carry just a little bit of extra weight. I wasn't quite as quick as I was my sixth grade year. Kids beat me in suicides and stuff like that. And I had this one. He wasn't even the head coach; he was the assistant coach at the time, and he said one of those things that I touched on earlier, like, "Hey, man, you're not getting up the court very well. Like, you probably need to lose some weight," or something along the lines of that. Like, literally that blunt and that. I mean, to a seventh grader, just made me feel like crap. So, like that year, I did. I tried my best to like stay in as good a shape as I could. And that seventh grade year of basketball was actually probably like my last like really good year of basketball. It was because my head coach, not the one that I was just talking about, but my head coach, he's actually passed away now. Rest in peace. But that he was awesome. Probably like my best coach that I've ever had. Made a huge impact on me. So like having him in my corner that year was huge. Like I kind of just said, forget that assistant coach. Like he's not even there, and ended up having a really good seventh grade year of basketball. But fast forward to junior year of high school, I was a junior, so I really should have been playing varsity soccer. But ahead of me was 12 seniors on a soccer team. Yes, you have 11. You can only have 11 on the field, and so like that's already a full fielded team of just seniors. So I didn't even, and I was a little bit behind the eight ball, like still not in as probably good a shape as I should have been. And I remember my soccer coach telling me like, hey, like probably not going to see much varsity time this year because 12 seniors and then the other juniors that were playing up. He said, you want to be ready for next year, like just be ready, like don't come in behind the eight ball. So like my junior summer before my senior year, I busted my ass, worked hard, and I went into that senior year, and it was like that first week of practice or tryouts. Coach Goller is like yelling from across the field, it's Mefford, this is the best shape you've been in all 4 years. So, I mean, just constantly always like trying to be ready for that upcoming year when I was maybe not in as good a shape as I could have been. Like I was told the year prior, like be ready when you show up for tryouts, and I did. I worked hard that off season and that year, and I'm not saying I was in great shape, but I was in the best shape of my 4 years of high school, and it paid off. I had a really good summer or a really good senior year, and it's better than like my sophomore and junior year. So that was some adversity I had to work through. But I wish I had a really good story as far as athletics, but it's another reason why I like to coach, because I want kids to have a better athletic experience in their middle school and high school years than I had.
See, there you go. You just came back and gave the quick synopsis that you wanted to give earlier. So,
Yep.
um, so, uh, well, this kind of wraps up episode 1 for us. Thank you for coming on, Clay, and thank you for all you do for your athletes down there in Northern Kentucky. And if you're listening to this and you don't know who Clay is or ProForce, I encourage you to contact him and by all means, get in the program. So
Get in the program.
join the fam.
Yep. PF
Join
family.
and learn how to be savage at those basics. So
Be a savage at the basics, guys. Be a savage at the basics.
yeah, thanks,
And thank
Clay.
you. It was fun.